Discover the inspiring love story of a millionaire and a runaway bride escaping her shocking fate. Emily stared at her reflection, the face looking back at her feeling like a stranger. The pristine white dress enveloped her, a suffocating symbol of a life she never chose. Today was her wedding day, a day she was supposed to cherish. Instead, the weight of expectation sat heavy on her chest, and the walls of her small apartment felt as if they were closing in. Each breath was a battle against the urgency of escape, the impulse to run far from the path set for her, an endless cycle of dutiful compliance to the whims of her family and the calculated pursuit of Robert, the businessman with charming smiles yet cold intentions. She felt trapped. Trapped in an engagement that felt more like a prison sentence. Thoughts spiraled through her mind: would anyone truly understand her plight? The fear that washed over her in waves was insurmountable. Would she be judged by family, by friends, by the community that always watched her every move? Would they see her as a failure? The familiar aches of doubt pulsed through her, more insistent than ever. Her heart raced as she watched the clock tick closer to the hour expected of her. She could hear the soft flurry of activity outside her window, laughter, music, the bustle of Maplewood getting ready for the big celebration of her impending union. The realization struck her that while the town prepared to celebrate her, she felt nothing but dread. Breathing erratically, she considered her options, weighing her fears against a sudden craving for liberation. Freedom hung tantalizingly within reach, yet the responsibility of her family's expectations weighed heavier. What would they think if she didn't show up? Before she could think it through, she made a split-second decision. In a haze of desperation, she kicked off her heels, slipped out of the dress, and pulled on her old jeans and a t-shirt. The crisp morning air greeted her, refreshing yet alien against her warm skin. She dashed through the streets of Maplewood, urgency propelling her forward as vibrant hues of autumn surrounded her. Every corner held echoes of her past, each familiar sight feeling like a reminder of the life she was leaving. Just then, she collided with a broad-shouldered figure. Jack, a self-made millionaire who had left Maplewood for a world of corporate riches and relentless competition. His dark eyes met hers, and in an instant, the chaos in her heart found a moment of clarity. Emily felt raw and exposed, as if he saw straight through her carefully crafted walls. Jack, too, bore the weight of expectations, his family's dreams tethering him to a life he never wanted. Before they could share words, the gap between their worlds seemed insurmountable. Judgment lurked in the shadows of Emily's mind as whispers of caution echoed from friends and family. Meanwhile, Jack's elite circle, wearing designer labels, would regard her as an outsider, a stain on his polished reputation. The tension clung to the air like fog, thickening the space between them. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The emotional storm swirling within her began to take a creative form as she stumbled into painting, unearthed from the depths of her soul. Each brushstroke became a scream of freedom, yet simultaneously anchored her further in her own tumult. The community began to take notice. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. How could a simple waitress, once lost within her own limitations, now stand before them in bold colors, dangerously raw? The mounting pressure pressed upon Jack as he wrestled with the weight of his familial duties, torn between fulfilling their dreams and following his heart. Each moment intensified the realization that real success was not branded on bank statements but rooted in authenticity. As Emily prepared for her first public art showcase, nerves overtook her. Would she truly unveil the colorful thoughts that had begun to define her? But this revelation was twofold as the angst of revealing her soul met the growing darkness of Robert's return. Just when hope flickered in their connection, a shocking figure emerged from the crowd, and her heart clenched. The door creaked open, and there stood Robert, the man she thought she had left behind forever. As Robert's presence permeated the room, a remarkable change swept over Emily. The exhilaration she had felt just moments earlier dissipated, leaving a tight knot of anxiety in its wake. All the vibrant colors in her artworks faded in her mind, overshadowed by memories of their past, memories of manipulation, hurt, and lingering regret. Her pulse raced, each beat a steady reminder of the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. She fought to maintain her composure, the excitement in the air suddenly feeling grotesque and unwelcoming. She had intentionally broken away from that chapter of her life, and yet here was Robert, personifying everything she had sworn to escape. Jack's guarded expression matched her apprehension, a silent understanding passing between them as they both processed the unexpected surge of emotions. Emily's artistic triumph felt suddenly fragile, like a canvas threatened by a torrential storm. Could she still stand strong amidst this chaos? Taking a deep breath, she recalled the reasons she had chosen this path. Each stroke of her brush in the past weeks had been a declaration, an act of self-liberation. The thought of surrendering that power now felt intolerable. Emily squared her shoulders, pushing back against her fears. She would not allow Robert's intrusion to derail her blossoming sense of self. Emily, Robert's voice sliced through the noise like a sharpened blade, laced with a false sense of warmth and familiarity. I was worried you wouldn't come today. You left so abruptly. He leaned closer, trying to catch her gaze. The memories surged, a whirlwind of whispers from parties past, sharp glances from his elitist crowd, warnings disguised as affection. She could not allow the flood to consume her now. Do you really think I'd let you dictate my choices any longer? She shot back, an unexpected steadiness breaching the wavering lines of her heart. Robert's smile faltered, replaced by a glimmer of surprise. You don't have to act like this, Em. We had a life planned, both of us, he argued, a desperate plea threading through his tone. Not a life I chose, she countered, anger and defiance fueling her. I've fought hard to become who I am today. I want to let you take that away. Jack quietly observed their exchange, sensing the high stakes rippling beneath the surface. He had built his empire from a desire to escape the confines of expectation, and now, witnessing Emily's fight, he felt a flicker of inspiration ignite within him. The passion that had been dormant in him began to stir once again. Perhaps they could both break free from their ghosts, but Robert wouldn't go down without a battle. You think this little art show changes anything? You think you're someone now? His words dripped with derision, calculated to wound and belittle. With each taunt, Emily could feel the resolve crystallizing within her. This was more than a showcase, it was a proclamation of her right to choose her life, her love, her art. The memories of Robert's past condescension transformed into fuel, igniting a fierce sense of purpose. She realized that her vulnerability was also her strength, and in that moment, she understood that running away had only led her to the necessity of standing firm. I am someone, Emily declared, her voice resonant and clear. I am no longer your shadow. The tension thickened the air as she stepped away from Robert, turning physically and metaphorically toward Jack. The silent question hanging between them ignited something deeper, a shared ambition and an understanding that they were both fighting for their voices in a world demanding silence. With a sudden burst of inspiration, Jack took a step forward, ready to confront his own familial pressure, his own expectations. Emily's brave stand spurred something within him, an internal rebellion against the facade he had worn far too long. Then, the unexpected unfolded. Robert recoiled slightly, but instead of retreating, he advanced, his demeanor shifting. Is this the path you've chosen, Em? To throw away what we could have had? His voice dripped with insincerity. Each word a desperate attempt to cling to control. Emily sensed the challenge in the air, a boiling tension begging for resolution. She realized that she was not just fighting against Robert, but against every instance that had held her back, every fear she had wrestled with in her own mind. There's no turning back, she replied firmly, reserving a courageous glimmer of resolve for Jack. With determination stirring new hope, Emily faced the gallery, hearts racing, an internal revolution at play. The moment was charged, the air thick with raw emotion. She understood now that choices would define her, not the opinions of others. As the whispers of negativity started to fade, Emily held on to the new perspectives she had gained throughout her artistic journey, decisions that tested her very core. Robert's intrusion had catalyzed a rebirth, a confirming moment where failure was redefined, and where she realized the truth: she was not just a runaway bride, but a woman learning to soar. Just as the crowd began to embrace this new energy, the door opened yet again, drawing every eye to its shadowy threshold. A different figure emerged, one from Emily's past, but she couldn't yet grasp the implications of this new arrival, a ghost from a different time, threatening to unravel everything she had fought to become. Which truth would prevail, and would she be able to navigate the darkness looming on the horizon? As the figure stepped into the gallery, Emily's heart skipped a beat, her stomach twisting with an unsettling familiarity. The aura surrounding this newcomer pulsed with a magnetic energy that instantly struck a chord in the depths of her memory. She took a moment to collect herself, realizing how vulnerable she felt. What was once a moment of empowerment now trembled under the weight of the unexpected. The figure was tall, confident. It was Clara, from her art school days, a friend who had shared countless late nights discussing dreams of artistic grandeur. Clara had flourished in the gallery scene, her talent unmatched, but her lifestyle had also been a cocktail of chaos and ambition. Emily had distanced herself from that world, had almost sanitized her past, but Clara's arrival had burst that bubble wide open. "Emily?" Clara's voice sliced through the murmurs of the crowd, ringing with both surprise and disbelief. Clara. The name felt foreign on her tongue, a reminder of who she used to be, of the glittering expectations she had chosen to flee. Emily's heart raced not only from the surprise but from the realization that Clara's presence felt like a challenge, a measure of her growth. "What are you doing here?" Clara asked, her brow raised in amusement as she assessed the gallery. The initial warmth in her voice quickly shifted to an icy skepticism. Emily straightened, the internal gears of her resolve grinding together with fresh determination. "This is my show," she said, meeting Clara's eyes with a fierceness that felt just short of transformative. A laughter that was both mocking and delighted escaped Clara's lips. "Your show? This circus? Did you really think you could escape who you are?" The word stung, echoing Robert's taunts with staggering precision. But this time, the heaviness wasn't a chain binding her, it was the spark igniting her fire. "Who I am is exactly what I'm reclaiming," Emily replied, her voice steady. She wasn't here for Clara's approval, she was here to stake her claim in the world she had carved out of the mess of her life. Jack, quietly observing, felt a rush of empathy for Emily as he recognized the critical moment unfolding. The very confrontation she faced mirrored his struggles with familial pressure, expectation, and the desire to break free. He took a step closer to her, a silent offer of solidarity in this staggering moment of vulnerability. "Since when did you care about what I think?" Clara continued, her tone shifting to a more personal attack. "You've always been the naive dreamer. This doesn't change that." With every word Clara spoke, Emily grappled with the old narratives trying to seep into her new reality. The past fought against the woman she was becoming, but the battle was no longer a one-sided affair. She was armed with her experiences, her struggles, and her triumphs. "I was naive, Clara," Emily said, her voice now a quiet thunder. "And maybe I still am. But I've learned to value my dreams, my art, and my choices. All I ever wanted was to be true to myself and create something that mattered." A silence enveloped them, but beneath the surface, the tension continued to simmer. Clara's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of recognition passing through her eyes, a glimpse of the courage it took to declare one's identity amidst judgment and pressure. "Do you really think this will change your life? That it will mean something?" Clara ventured, her confidence wavering, but vulnerability would no longer equate to weakness for Emily. "It already has. I'm choosing who I want to be without the influence of your expectations, or Robert's, or anyone else's. That choice is my greatest achievement." Emily felt clarity surge within her chest, each word crystallized her vision of empowerment, resonating with all she had labored to manifest. The contrast between herself and Clara became painfully stark and she welcomed it. Here was a moment ripe with possibility. She could either continue to allow her past to intimidate her or stand strong against it. As Clara's facade began to falter, Emily understood that this confrontation was not merely about artistic validation, but a deeper reckoning with the results of their life choices. If she could stand firm here, amidst her most formidable doubts, perhaps she could share this insight with Jack, too, guiding him towards releasing his constraints. Suddenly, Robert stepped into the fray again, sensing an opportunity. "You think a few words will redefine you? You're playing a dangerous game, Emily." She squared her shoulders, ready to face another challenge, feeling Jack's presence buoying her. "Dangerous? Perhaps. But I'd rather be a daring artist than a fading shadow," she responded, a fierce joy blending with her resolve. What she didn't expect was the tremor of fear that settled in the pit of her stomach. The atmosphere shifted again, and as more eyes turned towards Emily, she realized that only she held the key to her truths. But what revelation would await her as she confronted the ghosts of her past? As she stood tall, an internal debate began to brew within her. What if embracing her truth meant triggering a deeper conflict within herself? As her past threatened to catch up with her once again, she felt the edges of her newfound strength beginning to fray. What choices would she make now, with the shadows of doubt creeping closer? Emily held her breath as Clara's laughter faded, leaving an uneasy silence hanging in the air. She could feel a palpable shift. The crowd was now acutely aware of the conflict brewing before them. Clara's face had lost its initial mirth, replaced by a look of determination layered with confusion. What had once felt so familiar now teetered on the edge of a pivotal rupture. "Do you think that because you can stand here and say I am enough, it makes it real?" Clara challenged, the corners of her mouth tightening. It stirred a deep-seated anxiety in Emily, memories of her own self-doubt abruptly rushing back. Had she merely constructed a facade of confidence? What's real, Clara? The chaos we lived in? The endless chasing of ideals that felt hollow? Emily's response burst forth, a reflex to shake off Clara's skepticism. "This is my moment. I've worked hard, and it's time to acknowledge not just the success, but the pain that led me here. That's what makes it real." Clara's eyes narrowed, her skepticism morphing into something else. A flicker of surprise? Perhaps even envy. It was a fleeting thought, but it jolted Emily's perspective. She didn't want to be swept into Clara's web of competition. She had fought her way out of that tumultuous world. Jack's presence at her side steadied her resolve even more. If anything, seeing him there breathed fresh life into her courage. He needed this as much as she did. "It's easy to mock, Clara. You've built a reputation on spectacle," Emily pressed on, her voice steady. "But do you have any idea how liberating it is to acknowledge your struggles and triumphs? It's not about fitting into someone else's definition of success. It's about creating a narrative that's mine." Just then, Robert moved closer. "Emily, you think people care about your story? They come for art, not for dramatics." His scoff was heavy with condescension, and Emily felt her heart race not in fear, but in defiance. "Maybe the world needs both." She shot back, her voice rising above the chatter. The scent of paint and varnish filled her senses, grounding her in this moment. In that instance, something deeper clicked within, the realization that she wasn't just an artist in this space, but a woman reclaiming her entire existence. She turned to the crowd, whose eyes reflected varying degrees of intrigue and disbelief. "Art isn't merely aesthetics, it's an exploration of the human condition, it's an artist's confrontation with their very existence. You want to talk about the dangers of vulnerability? Look around. Every piece here tells a story, encapsulates a fight." Clara stepped in, visibly agitated. "And what if they don't like what they see? What then?" She seemed to challenge Emily's conviction, but the doubt in her voice felt strangely hollow. "I'll share my truth regardless," Emily asserted, finding strength in her tone. "Expectations may weigh heavy, but every fight for authenticity is worth the scars. And if I fail? Then I will have failed as me, not as a version of someone I'm trying to please. That's my power." In that moment, Emily glimpsed the collective hesitation of the crowd morph into something potent curiosity mingled with admiration. This wasn't just about the paintings on the wall, it was about the human experience. But with the exhilaration came an awareness that her battle hadn't reached its peak. The confrontation with Clara and Robert was merely a foreshadowing of deeper revelations yet to unfold. Could she maintain this newfound clarity when her internal doubts surfaced once more? "Let us see how long this clarity lasts," Robert quipped, that same venom dancing in his eyes. "Enough." Emily's voice commanded silence. "I refuse to let others dictate my narrative any longer. This is my journey, with all its cracks and imperfections." As she stood, unbowed and steadfast, something within her began to stir, a whisper of challenges yet to come. Was this confrontation the beginning of rediscovering not just her art, but her identity? The shadows of doubt loomed near, but Emily sensed a shift occurring. This was not just an encounter, it had morphed into a catalyst for inevitable choices lying ahead. She cast a glance toward Jack, whose expression was a mix of admiration and contemplation. What would his reaction be when faced with his own crossroads? Would he find the courage to break free too? The arena of self-acceptance was fiercely unfolding, but Emily could not shake the looming question: was she truly prepared for the storm of reckoning that lay ahead? The moment of truth had arrived, and she knew that turning back was not an option. The excitement of her artistic journey felt inseparable from the trials of her emotional landscape, an intricate dance that was just beginning to unravel. With each brush stroke of courage, Emily sensed that the ultimate test of her identity was elusively approaching. Would she claim the future on her own terms, or would the past silently weave its way back into her life? The pulsating energy in the room enveloped Emily like a warm embrace. Yet her heart raced with a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. She had taken a stand, her voice rising against the odds, but she understood that challenges were merely beginning to surface. As the murmur of the crowd began to resume, her internal dialogue screamed louder than ever. Was this the moment of liberation she had long sought, or merely an echo of fleeting bravado? Jack remained by her side, the silence between them charged. His steadfast presence was a comfort, but she sensed an unspoken tension beneath the surface. Would he stand firmly with her as she navigated the storm ahead, or would his own uncertainties propel him into the background? The reality of their partnership just became more complicated, and she could no longer ignore the undercurrents. "I admire your courage, Emily," Jack finally said, breaking the stillness. His eyes were fixed on hers, yet there was a flicker of uncertainty. "But I wonder what if this path is entirely uncharted? Do you have a plan beyond this moment?" Emily took a step back, startled by the starkness of his question. She had projected them both into a new narrative, but was she prepared to support their shared future? "I want to create, Jack," she replied, her voice steady but contemplative. "I want to explore every facet of my art and life. Isn't that enough of a plan?" He shook his head gently, a hint of frustration coloring his expression. "You're capable of more than you realize. But it won't matter if you don't take that vision and make it actionable. Authenticity requires more than just confrontation, it demands strategy." His perspective struck a chord deep within her. Was she merely reacting, rather than plotting her next move? Could she truly shape her destiny without an articulate path forward? The inner turmoil knotted tighter, unveiling layers of self-doubt she had sought to conceal. As she wrestled with these thoughts, Clara's gaze flicked between Emily and Jack, her expression hinted at the lurking jealousy that always seemed to surface. "While you overthink your next step, the art world won't wait," she interjected, her tone barbed. "It's competitive out there, and every hesitation could cost you opportunities." Swallowing the resentment flooding her veins, Emily maintained her composure. "Clara, every step towards authenticity matters, even if it means pausing to recalibrate. If I rush this journey, I lose not only my art but myself. And what if it's too late?" Clara snapped, her voice dripping with mockery. "You'll find your moment slipped through your fingers while you ponder." The sharpness of Clara's words bore into her, forcing Emily to confront the coiled uncertainty she buried. Were her aspirations mere whims? Could a lacking strategy undermine her potential? The feeling of chaos clawed at her resolve, casting shadows yet again, turning her back to Clara. Emily's eyes swept through the crowd. She was no longer just battling words, she faced her own restless thoughts, echoing Clara's discontent. If she allowed doubt to consume her, then would her fight for authenticity end in surrender? Jack's unwavering gaze compelled her to rethink her approach. "Let us make a plan," she declared, voice rising above the whispers. "An authentic one that includes risk-taking and courage. I won't shy away from the art I wish to share, or from the strategies needed to bring it to life." The crowd was uncharacteristically quiet, absorbing her transformation. Perhaps they sensed the determination seeping through the cracks of her previous fears. She was confronting not just the challenges around her, but a deeper fear that had lingered for too long. "What will you do?" Jack broke the silence softly, leaving room for a newfound energy to fill the air. Emily took a breath, feeling the electric anticipation that filled her heart. "I'll chart my course, starting today, and I'll invite others into this journey with me. My art won't just be about me, it will reflect shared experiences, evoking connection." "Then we start mapping it out," Jack replied, a subtle resolve igniting in his features. As they began to sketch ideas in the air between them, she realized there was clarity in the uncertainty, and conviction wrapped itself around her ambitions. She didn't need to fear failure, she just needed a plan, a direction to pursue. Yet, even as possibilities expanded, doubt lurked beneath the surface like a distant storm, ready to rumble ahead. Would she soar or falter under the weight of expectations? The very foundations she attempted to build could just as easily crumble, pulling her back into familiar shadows. But embracing uncertainty was as integral as wielding her brush. Both required bravery and vision. Emily's next steps loomed large, their significance tightening her chest. Could she sustain this newfound clarity while dismantling her fear? Closing her eyes, she drew in a deep breath, hoping the clarity wasn't just an illusion. With change imminent, she was on the precipice of a decision that would impact not just her art, but every facet of her life moving forward. What would breaking through these external and internal barriers reveal about her potential? The answer was on the horizon, but would it recognize her when she finally arrived? Clarity dawned on Emily like the early morning sun pushing through thick fog. The weight of her revelation sparkled before her, yet the uncertainty pulsated in the back of her mind. As she looked at Jack, the framed tableau of ambitions and aspirations began reorganizing itself. There was urgency, a demand to act on her newfound determination. However, could she truly translate vision into tangible outcomes? "Let us outline a roadmap," she proposed, the firmness in her voice surprising even herself. "I won't just start creating, I'll strategize how to share and market it." Her words hung in the air, resonating with the potential they encapsulated. Jack nodded, a glimmer of approval flashing in his eyes. "Good. Strategy paired with passion can make a powerful impact. What do you envision for your art?" Glancing around the room, she sought inspiration from the very crowd that had once apprehensively watched her. "I want to host a series of interactive workshops," she began, piecing together a vision. "They'll serve as a blend between exhibition and engagement. I'll invite local artists and professionals. It's time to revitalize the community through creativity." Jack's brow furrowed in thought. "Engagement is vital, but you'll need to communicate the why behind your initiative. You must frame it as something larger, as a movement rather than just a series of events." His insights penetrated her hesitation, helping her sift through the chaos of ideas. I want to illustrate that art is not just an individual pursuit, it's a collective journey, she responded, her confidence building. Each workshop could culminate in a collaborative project, allowing everyone to leave a mark. The forward momentum elicited excitement in Emily, but Clara's voice echoed menacingly in her head. What if they judge me? She wondered. What if they see right through this facade? That doubt crept in uninvited, threatening to derail her ambitions. Clara's right about one thing, she confessed, crossing her arms nervously. I'm scared of missing opportunities because I'm worried about how I'll be received. Jack tilted his head slightly, a gesture that urged her to delve deeper. Fear is natural, but it shouldn't paralyze you. Instead, use that fear as a catalyst. What if you reframed it? What if the voices of criticism were an invitation to grow? Her breath caught at the challenge. Invitations to grow. The phrase ignited something within her. Perhaps it was time to embrace vulnerability as a tool rather than a hindrance. I will write my own narrative, she asserted, her conviction emerging stronger. This is a journey I curate, not the spectators. As ideas poured from her, jeans and t-shirts wearing dreamers and aspiring visionaries formed narratives along her periphery. I want to utilize social media to document this journey, Emily continued, inspired by the multitude surrounding her. Behind-the-scenes content, artist profiles, live discussions let us break down the barriers of exclusivity in the art world. Jack's enthusiasm grew. Yes. Engage with your audience. Invite them in. Build a community around it. They riffed ideas back and forth, productive energy forging between them. Yet, underneath this blossoming partnership lurked an earthier reality. Could they sustain it amidst their growing tensions? Just as doubt began to dissolve, a sudden thought stiffened her resolve. Would Jack remain consistent in this alliance as they embarked on this uncharted path? Could his uncertainties once again pull her back into the safe shadows she despised? Days passed, and Emily found herself ensnared in bursts of perseverance, yet crumbling under the weight of expectations and inexperience. Each planning session became an exhilarating exploration permanently shadowed by her self-imposed limitations. Participating in small local meetups filled her with anticipation, yet she struggled to vocalize her vision without faltering. One evening, overwhelmed by fatigue, she glanced in the mirror. Was this the face of a visionary? All she saw were insecurities weighing heavily across her. Features that if she was to execute the plan, she needed to confront the voice of self-doubt once and for all. That very night she opened her sketchbook and began designing, pouring her fears onto the page until the forms of ideas crystallized. What emerged was the outline of an art project showcasing not only her growth but informing her audience about authenticity. Tomorrow, everything changes, she whispered, making a quiet pact with herself. The sun peeked through the open window the next morning, leaving glimmers of hope. In that light, she was ready to embrace whatever would follow. But as she prepared to deliver her first community workshop announcement, the gnawing doubt would soon re-emerge, demanding confrontation in a way she had yet to anticipate. What awaited her when she stepped onto that stage, ready to face the critics and champions alike? Would the strands of courage be enough to weave her vision into reality, or would they snap under pressure? Emily awoke the next morning with a tight knot of anxiety lodged deep within her chest. Today was the day, the long-anticipated day she would share her vision with the world. As she stood before her mirror, the reflection bore witness to her internal struggle, a testimony to both her trepidation and her steadfast determination. Henpecked by questions, she felt the weight of uncertainty balancing precariously on the edge of her resolve. What if they laughed? What if no one came? She shut her eyes, inhaling deeply, willing the air to imbue her with strength. Emerging from the fog of fear, she found a flicker of conviction nestled within the shadows. Today was her opportunity to impart not just her intentions, but her very essence. The morning passed in a flurry of activity. Emily crafted every word of her announcement meticulously, determined to communicate the passion behind her workshops. Yet every stroke of the pen felt like a battle, a tug-of-war between her innate desire for expression and the ghosts of her past uncertainties. When she finished, she stared at the page for what seemed like hours, scrutinizing the words as if hoping they would morph into something divine. At noon, she arrived at the community space she had secured for the unveiling. Nestled amongst the delicate curtains and worn wooden floors, the space had long stood empty, evoking a faint echo of conversations past. This was now her canvas, a platform for ideas to bloom. Anxiety bubbled inside her, mingling with excitement as she set up her materials, creating an inviting atmosphere for prospective participants. "Remember, this is just an introduction," she reminded herself, the mantra echoing in her thoughts. But as the minutes to her announcement dwindled, that mantra frayed into 1,000 nagging doubts. She stepped outside, seeking a moment to ground herself. The warm sunlight bathed her skin, yet it felt distant and cold as her mind turned inward. Clara's voice clamored louder. What if the community viewed her as an imposter? How could she present herself as an artist worth following, when inside she felt like a novice untangling strings of creativity? In that moment of vulnerability, an unfamiliar resolve surged through her. She needed to confront Clara head-on, to turn the tables on the self-critical narrative she had accepted for far too long. Taking a deep breath, Emily closed her eyes again, this time envisioning an audience filled with warmth, curiosity, and potential. Instead of fearing judgment, she would invite connection. Her truth was her strength, and she had a story to share. With newfound clarity, she returned inside, where a small group had gathered, some looking intrigued while others exchanged skeptical glances. Meeting their eyes one by one, she felt the connection form, even if slightly tenuous. "Hello, everyone." Her voice wavered momentarily but steadied as she embraced the rhythm of her well-prepared script. She shared her vision passionately, her words weaving a rich tapestry of her aspirations for creativity, community, and collaboration. In that moment, doubts receded as a new sonic pulse filled the room. An engaging dialogue sparked, the energy shifted as she became aware of their nods, their eagerness to contribute, their willingness to embrace her vision as their own. But just as she was gaining traction, the door opened, and a familiar silhouette stepped inside. Jack. The moment he walked into the light, her heart raced, an unsettling mix of supportiveness and looming tension threading through her thoughts. Would his presence uplift her confidence, or would it reignite her insecurities? As he settled into a chair at the back, an unanticipated determination surged within her, a desire to prove to him, and to herself, that she could rise above the specters of self-doubt. "Thanks for joining me today," she said, her voice stronger than before. "This is about all of us coming together to create something beautiful." As she stepped deeper into her narrative, she could feel the pulse of connection building. Yet she knew the road ahead was filled with unpredictability, not just from the workshop attendees but also from her own psyche. Jack's presence alone tethered the anticipation of future conversations that may still threaten her progress. This workshop marked only the beginning, she reminded herself, but would the embers of today ignite a broader self-acceptance, or would Clara's whispers continue to haunt her? The moment before her unfolded possibilities, yet the lingering question danced on her mind: would she truly embrace the woman she was becoming, or would she retreat into the shadows once more? The room hummed with the energy of tentative anticipation as Emily stood poised to speak, the gaze of her audience resting on her. Each face held a mixture of curiosity and skepticism, their expectations swirling like a storm in her mind. In that charged atmosphere, she found herself at a crossroads, of balance between vulnerability and confidence, between self-doubt and self-assertion. "Today," she began, her voice amplified by the silence, "is not just about what I can offer you, but what we can discover together." The words flowed now, emboldened by the crucible of her inner turbulence. As she spoke of creativity, of art as a release, she saw flickers of recognition weaving through the crowd. Laughter rippled in response to her anecdote, small but significant victories against the relentless tide of her earlier fears, yet, Jack's presence loomed large in the corner of her consciousness. Why did his presence possess this duality? His support was a balm, but it also conjured insecurities that had long paralyzed her. Each time she stole a glance in his direction, she felt as though she were walking a tightrope, suspended between fear of judgment and the desire for validation. As the momentum built in the room, she ventured toward her workshop's core mission, creating a safe space for exploration. "This workshop will be a place where creativity isn't judged," she proclaimed. "It's an invitation to everyone, regardless of their previous artistic endeavors, to reclaim their voice." The group leaned in, and the tension that had gripped her began to dissolve. She allowed herself to breathe. Soon, she invited questions. An attendee, a woman with bright, curious eyes, asked, "What if I've never created anything before?" Emily's heart raced again, but not from fear. Here was a chance not merely to reassure but to inspire. "Every artist starts somewhere," she answered, feeling the shift occur within her. "You may find there are parts of you brimming with creativity you've never allowed to surface. This is about discovering those hidden facets together." Embracing that idea felt like shedding a layer of skin. The unfamiliar weight of encouragement began to replace the restraints of self-doubt. With every question posed and every thoughtful reply she offered, Emily felt a spark of connection ignite not just between her and the attendees, but within herself. She wasn't simply the vessel for their creativity, she was a catalyst for her own self-acceptance. In this moment, the shadows that Clara had cast over her began to retreat. However, just as she began to feel anchored in her purpose, Jack's eyes met hers across the room. His expression, soft yet ambiguous, brought a tumultuous wave of emotion threatening to reformulate her confidence into doubt once again. The fleeting connection ignited questions in her mind. Did he believe in her? Would he support her journey, or would her insecurities inadvertently draw her back into the familiar embrace of failure? Harnessing this internal conflict, she refocused her energy. "Each of you is a part of a larger narrative. Your stories matter, both to yourselves and to the world you interact with every day." The room hummed with murmurs of understanding. As the workshop continued, Emily seamlessly navigated between engaging dialogue and personal revelation. Her own barriers began to unravel publicly as she openly spoke of her struggles with self-worth. "This journey isn't merely about creating art, it's about learning to embrace ourselves. Together," she added, glancing once more at Jack, "we can explore our limitations, dismantling the very narratives that hold us captive." Would revealing this part of her vulnerability further bind her to the shadows of doubt, or would it set her free? As the workshop drew closer to its end, Emily felt a fortified resolve swelling within her. Today had ignited a new flicker of courage. She sensed this was the beginning of her transformation. Yet, one lingering question invaded her budding confidence. Was the support she truly craved from Jack attainable, or would it remain just out of reach, potentially a reminder of her insecurities? The room buzzed with new ideas, but as she began to wrap things up, she promised herself that she would confront this next step toward deeper self-acceptance, whatever form it might take. Would she find the courage to ask Jack directly how he viewed her newfound path, or would she risk retreating into self-doubt yet again? As the final moments of the workshop receded into a soft hum of chatter, Emily felt an electric pulse of anticipation that intertwined with her lingering insecurity. The chairs slowly reformed their disjointed circle, and the participants started to gather their belongings, glancing at her with lingering curiosity and admiration. She smiled at them, a gesture of gratitude that felt foreign yet right. But under that surface layer of warmth, a knotted tension remained. Jack's gaze was still firmly planted on her. She took a deep breath, seeking to channel the energy that had built over the past hours. With her heart racing, she turned to find him, standing just outside the periphery of the circle, enveloped in an aura of uncertainty. "Jack," she called, her voice rising slightly above the retreating din. The crowd turned to observe, and for a heartbeat, time stretched. Jack approached, his brow furrowed and browsed slightly as if he were parsing words from an unseen script. "You were incredible today," he said, a hint of admiration in his tone. Yet there it was again, his warmth blended with something deeper, something she couldn't quite identify. It was fleeting, and it stung more than it soothed. "Thanks," she replied, trying to disentangle her earlier resolve to confront her doubts. This conversation was an opening, an opportunity she didn't want to squander. "I feel like I finally took a step toward something real." Would that be enough to shake him from whatever hesitation lay coiled within him? What do you mean? He asked, tilting his head slightly as if trying to read between the lines of her emerging confidence. Emily hesitated, her thoughts colliding into a chorus of uncertainties. Would it help to expose the fragility lurking beneath her surface? Yet, paradoxically, it felt essential to assert her evolution. This workshop was a turning point. I realized I can embrace who I am, flaws and all. She remained poised, her heart thrumming insistently, waiting for a response and acknowledgement. Jack's reaction was one she craved to hear. You've always been strong, Emily. I think you need to give yourself more credit. His words both enveloped her in warmth and let shadows eke through. She inhaled deeply, emboldened yet terrified. But I wouldn't be here without your support, Jack. It was a calculated risk, but vulnerability was essential in the quest for authenticity. With tentative honesty, she added, please, can you tell me what you see when you look at me? I need to know if you truly believe in this version of me. A fractured silence settled between them, charged with unspoken expectations. The buzz of the workshop faded into a ghostly background, letting her heart hammer in her chest. She recognized the weight of her question. It demanded more than an offhand compliment. It sought transparency, an unguarded moment in a cranny of shared existence. Jack's expression shifted, an amalgamation of contemplation and concern. Emily, I see a woman who has the potential to carve her path, but I also see how you sometimes doubt yourself, he admitted slowly. I guess you could say I want to support you, but I don't know how. The honesty of his admission left her reeling, her heart racing anew. In that instant, clarity washed over her. It wasn't just about seeking approval. It was about sharing a vulnerability that struck at the heart of their connection. How could she confront her self-doubt if she couldn't bring him along for the ride? Fueled by this revelation, she used that energy to step closer. Can we figure it out together? She dared to ask, breaking through the hesitance that had tethered them both. It's time for me to discover who I really am, and I want you to be part of that journey. Jack's eyes darkened contemplatively. They sparked with something she hadn't seen before, an openness, an invitation to deeper connection shadowed by uncertainty. But what he didn't know about himself lingered just below the surface, ready to unveil the challenges ahead. The moment felt poised on the cusp of something profound, and Emily sensed that every step forward could lead to revelations that would test them both in ways unimaginable. As Jack's lips parted, ready to respond, she held her breath. She anticipated the words that might redefine their dynamic or plunge her deeper into the murky waters of her insecurities. Today had begun her transformation, but would she emerge unscathed? The vibrant colors flickered across Emily's mind as she stepped onto the stage of her first art workshop, poised at the intersection of anxiety and exhilaration. The intimacy of the room wrapped around her, shielding her from the world outside but amplifying the tension within. She was ready to unveil not just her artistic vision but the essence of her being. Hello, everyone. She began, her voice steady, infused with a genuine enthusiasm that lit the space. She shared her inspiration, her journey through chaos and clarity, and the heart behind each painting adorning the walls, a blend of struggle and celebration. The audience leaned in, captivated as the walls she had once held so tightly crumbled. With every question posed, she felt a surge of confidence. Art is not just for the elite or the experienced, it's for everyone willing to explore their creativity, she asserted, her words resonating with the crowd. They responded with nods and murmurs of agreement, recognizing fragments of their own hidden aspirations in her story. Jack's gaze remained on her, a firm presence in the enveloping warmth. She drew strength from him, yet an undercurrent of anxiety swirled within her. Would he remain a steadfast ally or become another remnant of her past? As she flowed deeper into her presentation, she brushed against her fear of judgment. Each stroke of paint is a testament to our journey. Let's reclaim those narratives together, without fear. As she charged through her outline for future workshops, Emily's clarity began to crystallize, revealing not only her vision but the solidarity of purpose with those gathered. She was not merely a teacher but a leader, harnessing her transformation in service of others seeking their own paths. The applause that followed her closing words echoed like a symphony of recognition, hitting against the lingering doubts within her. As people approached to share their thoughts and excitement, their awe bolstered her confidence. The workshop had established a community, a foundation that could thrive on shared creativity and collaboration. Then came the moment she had awaited. Jack approached, a smile flickering across his features, which bore the weight of his unspoken admiration. "You were incredible today, Emily. I knew you had it in you," he said, his eyes sparkling with sincerity. Relief washed over her, intertwining with a flurry of hope. This was validation she had sought, not just from him, but from herself, a deeper recognition of her evolving identity. "Thank you," she replied, heartened by his words, but sincerity wove with her lingering insecurity. "I felt so alive up there, yet I wasn't sure if I could pull it off." Jack scrutinized her for a moment, then added, "You found your voice, don't let it waver. Every moment is a choice." That simple statement struck a chord deep within her. This was her defining moment of transformation. Days passed, and as she thoughtfully plotted her next workshop, Emily was conscious of how far she had come. She embraced the rhythm of creation, infusing her days with painting and planning, enthusiasm eclipsing self-doubt. The layers of her art reflected her newfound clarity, a riot of colors aligned not just with her struggles, but with her triumphs. However, one evening, shadows danced across her canvas as she stared at the stark contrast of emotions within her. Her partner and mentor, Jack, was retreating into a silence she struggled to penetrate. "Where are you?" she finally asked during a quiet moment. "I feel you drifting." He hesitated. "I want to support you, but I'm fighting my own battles," he admitted, vulnerability tainting his calm demeanor. The tempest of his struggles mirrored her past, a reminder that transformation was ongoing, challenging, and often tumultuous for both. Determined, Emily responded, "Let us navigate this together. I've realized we can't just react to our fears, we must confront them." Her conviction echoed in the dim lighting of the room, and she saw sparks dance in Jack's eyes, a flicker of hope igniting within his uncertainty. Over subsequent weeks, they worked in tandem, Emily guiding Jack through his own professional hurdles. They explored possibilities together, discussing their futures openly, fostering a resilience neither had expected. Every conversation peeled back their layers as they navigated shared aspirations. Both stubbornly pursued authenticity, resonating deeply with the themes of Emily's art. Finally, her second workshop approached, and she felt a blend of exhilaration and vulnerability. This time, it wasn't merely about her but the joint tapestry they wove. Everyone was invited to weave a strand of their story. "Art is a collective journey, intertwined with our identities," she passionately proclaimed, and as the attendees engaged, she felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. Jack joined her on this path too, his support allowing her to flourish further. "I believe you can lead this and inspire so many," he encouraged, a steady affirmation grounding her spiraling thoughts. "And I'll find my voice alongside you." In that moment, the shadows began to dissipate, not just as she stood before her audience, confidently grabbing the brush of her destiny, but due to the flourishing partnership she had cultivated with Jack. Each workshop became a stepping stone, reinforcing their individual and collective strength. They inspired one another, growing both as artists and as partners, navigating the entangled emotions and expectations that had once felt suffocating. Months later, viewed through the lens of triumph, Emily could confidently reflect on her journey. She had transformed from a runaway bride, steeped in uncertainty, into a recognized artist whose voice rang authentic and true. Through collaboration with Jack, they embraced both their individual and intertwined journeys, accepting that confrontations were essential for growth. She memorialized this monumental shift in a new series of paintings, pieces executed in bold splashes of color, the narratives each telling tales of perseverance, authenticity, and connection. She reveled in the art of creating, transforming both herself and the community without ever surrendering to the shadows looming around them. With newfound solid confidence and a recognized competence, Emily stood in her studio, deeply fulfilled, and finally understanding that she could, indeed, conquer the depths of her fears. This was her moment to fully embrace her voice and the future that awaited her with invigorated ambition. Now was the time for others to join her on this path toward authenticity, and as she prepared for another unveiling event, she shared her journey openly, encouraging all to explore the depths of their own art and life, embracing every color of their individual narratives. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now, this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories will understand the importance of this.